time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Joan, as always, exceptional work from you from, your TV days all the way up to today. You're truly exceptional, and thanks for this great show you have.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Howdy. It is, oh my God. It is obviously radio with somebody who hasn't talked to anybody since she's been up today. I should talk to the dog at the very least. Be careful. There is a big flood warning. Waves on the lake could be as high as 5 feet. And if you know where you live, and if there's an area near where you live or a roadway that regularly floods, be careful, because today's the day it is going to do that. We had some tornado warnings. According to the weather alerts I get, those have mostly gone away. But you know what? They can come back at any point. When it gets really dark, it's a good time to pay attention to whether or not there are any tornado warnings or watches out there. So stay safe. I am going to share with you a story you may have read about. I think it is absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. Remember when Trump was at NATO and he made a big show of arriving there in his new Qatari jet, the one that he likes because it's so much prettier, so much more lush than Air Force One? And then when he left, suddenly the new pretty Qatari plane flew off to Germany, and Donald Trump was like, oh, it's so beautiful. I wanted all the troops in Germany to get a chance to look at it and appreciate its beauty. Because, he is a real caring, thoughtful guy like that. And old Air Force One showed up, and it didn't take long before the New York Times broke the story that the reason he changed planes was because old Air Force One had many more defensive capabilities, that somehow in their rush to get the Qatari jet up to speed, somehow those defensive capabilities just, who needs that? They hadn't been completed, if indeed they were ever even intended for that plane. So we all saw Donald Trump getting on board an old Air Force One, one of the older planes, and taking off. But here's what we didn't know. The Secret Service felt that there was such a credible threat that Iran was going to assassinate Trump, ostensibly by shooting down Air Force One, after Trump stood at the top of the stairs, waved to everybody, went into Air Force One, went to the front, which is where the president hangs out. They put him in a catering box. They put him in a catering container, which was then taken off Air Force One. The truck went over to a military aircraft where that container was loaded up. Donald Trump flew to England in a military craft, not Air Force One, a military craft that he got to in a catering box. Washington Post, well, I give them grief all the time. They broke this story. Pretty much everybody has it now. But Washington Post broke this story. Now, here's the thing. The threat of assassination, one would assume, since they're worried about the plane, it would be shooting the plane down. The threat of assassination was believed to be so credible by the Secret Service that they snuck Donald Trump secretly out of Air Force One in a box. Drove him over to a military plane where the box was loaded. And presumably at that point, they let him get out of the box, though. I don't know if it were me. I'm not sure I would. Here's the thing, though. None of the White House aides were told about this. None of the journalists who regularly fly with the president aboard Air Force One were told about this. So I guess it was okay to sacrifice all those people. Had there actually been a missile attack and for some reason Air Force One would have gone down, apparently everybody else on that plane was considered good cover for Donald Trump and people who could be sacrificed. Donald Trump doesn't have a great relationship with reporters, so you can kind of see where you'd be like, they're going to shoot down the reporters, good for me. But all of his aides were on that flight. And apparently, he was willing to sacrifice them as well. Because, somebody had to be on Air Force One for the trick to work, right? For the scam to work. What he did is weird enough, but the fact that he left all of his people behind on the plane that the Secret Service credibly thought might be blown out of the sky. If I was working for a guy like that and I had been one of the people left on the plane, if one of my children was working for that guy and I realized that they had been left on the plane, I would not be a happy camper. And when he got to London, apparently, I don't know if he went back in the container, because the reporting I've read just said that when he got back there, they snuck him back on to Air Force One, the one that was in danger of being blown out of the sky. They snuck him back onto it so that he could walk out like he had been on the plane the entire flight. They snuck him out in a food container, and I don't know how they snuck him back in. I wonder if that's what he was so afraid of. Remember when the New York Times first reported that the planes had been switched, not because he wanted to share his brand new plane with the troops, but because there was a credible threat against him and the older plane had more defenses? The suits had been dropped, but he sued all the New York Times reporters that reported that. I bet he was afraid they knew more than they reported. I bet he was afraid they knew about the ruse. And that he didn't want, probably knowing him, the biggest motivation was he didn't want to be embarrassed. He didn't want people making fun of the fact that he was folded up inside a catering box. If you're going to fold up the president inside of one of those big catering boxes, just curiosity, do you think they stuffed a Secret Service agent in the box with him? I'm guessing yes. Because what if that box went awry? What if the truck driver got confused and just was driving around the airport or went to the wrong plane? It wouldn't make sense to put the president in a box and not have at least one Secret Service agent in the box as well. Did they have flashlights? Did they have snacks? I mean, the trip wasn't very long. You can now see video that people have pulled up, and you can see the truck. You can see the catering food box being unloaded from the truck, and then you see the truck drive over to a military aircraft. Do you think they had bottles of water? What if for some reason they couldn't get the top off the box and they had to be in there for a while? Did they bring a little chemical toilet just in case they were stuck in the box? Inquiring minds want to know. I need to know how this worked. Yep. Catering box Donnie, our president, left his aides to get blown up. Because, if all of the White House aides had suddenly gotten off the plane, well, people would be like, what's going on? What's going on? So they had to be there to sell the con, even though by all accounts they had no idea they were being used this way. If my boss put me in danger like that, there would be hell to pay. So do you think the little minions are going to object, or are they just going to whisper amongst themselves? Be interesting to know if anybody quits over this. Or maybe they just thought, oh, I'm so proud that I was able to sell the con to keep my Donald Trump safe. From all accounts, the first Donald Trump presidency that was leaky as could be. Everybody in every department was talking to the media all the time. And at first, this one was different, but it is getting leakier and leakier and leakier as Donald Trump becomes weirder and more demented and less powerful as a lame duck. Somebody, whether it's the Washington Post or somebody else, try to find some of these White House aides that were literally left to die so that the president could be snuck off. And, everybody's got the video. You can see it happen. You can see the container come off the plane, get loaded, and the truck, it doesn't drive back to the hangar or to the place where trucks get loaded up with food. No, it drives over to a military aircraft. The coward in chief left his people to get blown out of the sky by a Iranian missile in a threat credible enough that the Secret Service snuck him off the plane. And then so nobody would know what happened. When they got to London, they snuck him back on the front of the plane so he could walk out like, hey, here I am. Oh, great flight, guys. It is just breathtaking to me. Some people are saying, oh my gosh, it was like something out of a spy novel. I guess if you don't care that your boss unknowingly puts you on the front lines, ready to take that missile. And how would those families have felt? Let's just say worst case scenario, that the plane had been hit by a missile. Obviously, Donald Trump is going to pop up in London like, ha, they didn't get me. How would you feel if you had a family member on that plane and your president literally left them to die? If anybody ever thought this was a man who cared about anybody but himself, I sure hope you no longer believe that. Because he ain't. Unbelievable. I'd love to find out who leaked this. They are a real credit to the country. Because, you people who listen to this radio station, unless you're hate listening, most of us really don't like Donald Trump. We don't think he's a good man. We don't think he's a good president. But there are lots of people who still think that this guy can do no wrong. How do you think they're going to wrap their head around the fact that he put so many lives on the line to save his own? To save his own. Okie dokie pokey. let's move on. Let's move away from the coward in chief. It is primary day in many, many states. We are going to be keeping an eye, of course, on Wisconsin. We know it. We love it. And we'll see who comes out on top in the Democratic primary for governor. Is it going to be David Crowley, who Peter Giangreco told us he thinks is the more electable Democrat? Or is it going to be the Democrat who, according to all the polling, is running away with this? And that's Francesca Hong, who is a progressive. And, there's opposition research. The opposition always wants to dig into you, see if they can find some dirt to throw on you. Francesca Hong has got kind of some strange things in her social media past. So did Graham Plattner, and he got through it. And what matters here, because let's face it, if you grew up in the era of social media, I defy you to not have something somewhere. But what matters is how you campaign after all that comes to light. Until the rape charges surfaced, and he really was cooked, Graham Plattner said, look, I wasn't always who I am today. I've admitted to you that I was having trouble after getting out of the military. I was having trouble with alcohol. Please don't judge me by my worst day. Judge me by who I am now. That's what Francesca Hong has to convince the people of Wisconsin. She has to convince the people of Wisconsin that she's not some radical communist who's gonna, I don't know. I mean, the things she's talking about, daycare, prices, that seems to be kind of the sweet spot where Democrats should be right now. At least to me, that seems like the sweet spot. I mean, Abdul El Sayed, who won his primary in Michigan, has done just that. People are like, oh my God, he's a radical communist. He wants to, end life as we know it. And he's been doing interview after interview. He's been talking to voters, and he's been talking about who he is. And, he made an interesting comment because, of course, the Republicans, the right, they're having a field day with his name because, he's Islamic. Abdul El Sayed, do you really want to vote for somebody with a name like that? And he said, I get it. Barack Hussein Obama faced much of the same kind of pushback. Yeah, he did. What matters more than who you were is who you are. And that is what you have to share with voters. And if there was something outrageous in your past, you've got to answer for it. You've got to explain where that came from and whether or not you still feel that way today. So we will see what the voters of Wisconsin do. And Max Miller is apparently staying in the race in Ohio. The man whose ex-wife, said that he physically abused her. She also said that he broke their 2-year-old's collarbone, though when the child was examined medically, there was no... Sometimes you can tell by the way a bone breaks. Like there's a thing called a spiral fracture, and a spiral fracture can be indicative of somebody manhandling your kid. It doesn't always have to be. You can get a spiral fracture without being abused, but that's one of the things that people look for when they're assessing an injury. And the people who assessed the 2-year-old said that there was no way to know for sure how this injury took place, though it was reported that one of the people who deal with child services said that the girl, in addition to the break, she also had a bruise. And, this is an observation from a professional, the child services person said to them it looked like a bruise in the shape of a hand. But that wasn't enough. And and as well as that, his girlfriend also said that he was physical with her. Yeah, so this is not just a bad divorce, he said, she said. This is a pattern of behavior, my friends. This is a pattern of behavior. But Max Miller said, I'm not getting out of the race. And you know what? I'm calling for an investigation, knowing full well that the investigation wouldn't be anywhere near completed. Heck, it probably wouldn't even be started by the time that the election would be. So, yeah, Max Miller on the ballot in Ohio. On the Democratic side of that primary or of that ballot in Ohio is a Democrat, Amy Acton, who's running against Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek is the Republican trying to become governor. Amy is the Democrat. Since Vivek Ramaswamy is one of Trump's Doge weirdos, it is just stunning to me that he's doing as well as he is. He's really, really rich, so he can afford a lot in the way of ads and digital ads, all different kinds of ads, getting his message out. He's really rich, so he can do that. And of course, Donald Trump's not going to get behind a Democrat. So Donald Trump has gotten behind him too. And, Trump isn't as powerful in Ohio as he once was, but I am sure that there are a lot of people, whether or not they've taken down the Trump signs, that still look up to him. And there are people in the conservative press who believe that if Max Miller's on the ballot, that a lot of Republicans will stay home and that he will hurt other races. Amy Acton, who's the Democratic candidate for governor in Ohio, was on MS Now yesterday with Jacob Soboroff. And she talked about her opponent, Vivek, and Congressman Max Miller. Listen to this.
Dr. Acton, Max Miller is now officially on the ballot in Ohio. How are you processing that?
Ohioans are exhausted of living this way, top of mind for folks, and we see record crowds of people. It doesn't know party. It's the cost of everyday living. They're working harder than they ever have. There is no breathing room, and they are longing for public servants again who actually solve problems instead of make them. This is a terrible, terrible story, and who's standing by him is my opponent, Mr. Vivek Ramaswamy. My story is that I had a very rough childhood. I was the victim of abuse, sexual and child abuse as a kid growing up. And they keep excusing this kind of behavior. My opponent actually said that I was just complaining about something that was done to me in my childhood. When I endured so much, I lived in a tent in the middle of winter. And I'm lucky to be here today because there are enough good people in my community who refuse to look the other way. And I am refusing to look the other way, and Ohioans are refusing to look the other way, while these bad actors and special interests keep taking my state backwards. It's time for a change.
Let us hope that the people of Ohio agree with her. She'd make a terrific governor. We are going to take a break. 773-763-9278. We are going to be back with calls and texts right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Oh, like me, you seem to be fixated on Diaper Donnie in a food container. The memes have already started on social media. People putting together pictures of, a side door of a container opening and Donald Trump peeking out while there's a shelf with like rolls and butter and stuff next to him. And I was speculating, as many of you are, as to whether or not he was alone in the box. I would guess not. I don't think that would be allowed, Wait a minute, where's the president? I don't know, the box went somewhere. Was anybody with him? No, he's on his own. Oh, we better find that box. So many of you are Many of you are texting in things that are very, very funny, not necessarily things, I'm sorry, that I can read on the air. Here's one of the milder ones. Can you imagine how bad it smelled inside that box? The Secret Service agent would be unconscious. Yeah. Yep. Somebody texted in, all of those CGI Trumps as U.S. heroes are now bogus. You know how he likes to put together fake pictures, him as Jesus, him as Rambo. Now I guess we're going to entertain ourselves with Donnie in a box. Donnie in a box. Somebody else. And, again, you guys are right on the edge here. Joan, the Iranians knew which plane Donnie was on because they kept their eyes on which plane the diaper order went to. And lest you think that, this is just something mean that I'm making up, one of the guys he was really close to on The Apprentice, who posts on social media about this all the time and has basically challenged Donald Trump to take him to court, which Donald Trump never has. He said that the two of them used to do, they used to crush up Adderall and snort it. And he said that Donald Trump would wear a diaper. Apparently, if you're an adult who abuses Adderall to get high or feel good, being incontinent for stool is one of the side effects. And this guy has said it over and over and over again on social media. And he always says, you know what? Don, sue me. Go ahead. Go ahead, Trump, sue me. And Donald Trump has pretended he doesn't exist. Okay. Let's go to the phone lines. Paul's on the line from Seattle. Hey, Paul. Are you there?
Hi, John.
Hi there.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I certainly can.
It just seems like and this is the New York Times reporting this story about Donnie and a catering cart.
The Washington Post broke the story. Now it's on the New York Times. The Guardian has it. Pretty much everybody has corroborated. Here's the Guardian. Trump reportedly hid in catering container to board secret flight in Turkey amid Iran threat. So yeah, it's being pretty widely reported now.
Well, Jeff Bezos is in deep wheat, right?
I know. I thought the same thing. The Washington Post, the paper Bezos owns, and the paper, Trump has told him that the paper's terrible and awful and that, it needs a lot of work. And they've already completely decimated the opinion part of the Washington Post to make it. The guy who a year ago was hired to change it has abruptly left for no apparent reason. But he said he was really proud of the fact that he brought the whole opinion section much further to the right, because that was his goal. That was his goal. So yeah. Well, so what's he going to do to the reporters? Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, just the idea that he left that airplane, that Air Force One, the plane, and all of the people aboard. I mean, I got to believe that there were at least 100, if not more, people aboard.
Was Susie? Did he leave Susie Wiles on board? Wouldn't that just be a lesson to her about who she was supporting?
And left them as decoys. I mean, this is
exactly.
But it does have this kind of almost. I don't know. I somehow get this like reminds me of something that they did on Andy. Don Knotts, Barney Fife on Andy Griffith. They switched Barney out of a Brinks truck. It was kind of the same kind of thing. It was. I mean, this is just outrageous. Considering all of if this is what they can think of, all of the contingencies that they could do, including just not fly the plane and say the president has decided to stay, whatever, and have people leave on other flights. Just get everybody go get their own flight back to Washington, and that they decided to fly the plane anyway is just, it really, it's like, who's in charge here? What kind of stupid idiots are in charge? And the Secret
Paul,
Service.
how would you feel if you were one of his aides and you are learning today that he left you on the plane that he credibly believed was going to be blown out of the sky? How do you continue to work for and support that guy? How do you do that?
I don't know how anybody continues to support him at all. I mean, now that when it comes down to that, yeah, you would have left me for dead. That's pretty in either an explosion or a plane that was disabled and crashed as you're terrified and panicked as you're heading for the ground. I don't know. This is just, it just seems like there was, whenever in other words, if there's some contingency, there's got to be contingencies if they think there's a threat and it's not, let's put them in a catering box.
Yeah.
I wish they would have just taken take the catering box and bury it somewhere. It's got garbage in it, okay? So just bury it. If they could have just done that, that would have put an end to a lot of things. But unfortunately, you're probably right that some poor sucker Secret Service draw the short straw and had to be in there with him and all of his stinky diapers and his bad breath. But yeah,
but one thing, and I don't know if this happened. One thing that they could have at least done, if because I think everybody knew when he changed planes, there was a reason to get the more secure plane. When they took off from Turkey, they could have kept the plane low so that it would be hard for Iran to get a radar lock. And instead of touching around Iranian airspace, the range of their missiles, they could have gone south and then, gone out over the ocean and then gone forward. They could have flown that plane outside the known range of Iranian missiles, and they could have stayed under the radar until they were at that distance. They didn't even do that.
Yeah, I think an easy public explanation would be everybody, the Air Force One was grounded they needed a part. I mean, I sat in a flight in San Francisco once where I sat there for 2.5 hours, because they needed a part. So they could just say, no, the plane is grounded, and everybody just get their way home. And the president took an Air Force. I mean, they can say that all later.
Yeah.
Just tell the rest, everybody else that now, and a safety reason, and that doesn't have to be out. If to fly the plane is just, to me, it seems not only all the lives lost, but the plane too. I mean, if that's blown out of the sky, and I mean that was the scandal of I don't know. There's no bottom. I mean, there's no absolute zero in mega anymore. It's just that nothing is absolutely no bottom. I don't know. It's hard to know, and who's making these decisions. I mean, that I would think that this is already in the box, so to speak, that they already know what they do, and it doesn't include let's sneak them up in a catering box. God.
Oh God, isn't that beautiful? Ray already sent me one of the AI pictures, and this is going to be a thing on social media. People having their way with AI.
Well, that's good. It's suitable for humiliation, I suppose, but it's just another and also that apparently Iran is dead. I mean, if it's a credible threat, this whole and I don't think Washington Post would report this, but they didn't have
multiple sources. Yeah, you don't go with a story like
yeah.
this with one source. You have to get corroboration. Paul, we need to get to a break. Thank you so much for the call. We are going to return with more texts as long as they're radio okay. We'll be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Oh, we are reading your texts and taking your calls. We are reading your texts that are radio friendly. For instance, more on this story about how Donald Trump hid in a catering cart so they could take him off Air Force One and move him across the tarmac and put him on a military aircraft. Some people got this great text. People also saw a McDonald's 18-wheeler pull up to the military plane before it took off. He does like his McDonald's, doesn't he? Yeah. When you were talking about Trump hiding in the food cart, I don't think you mentioned that the most obvious thing for them to do would have been to just delay the flight. So he put those people's lives at risk in order to not delay his flight. There are a million ways this could have been handled to keep his people safe. He got off a plane that he believed might be shot out of the sky, but he left all of his aides and all of the journalists to fly in that plane. Let's go to Jim, who's on the line from Chicago. Hey, Jim, how are you today?
Hi, Joan. Netanyahu can't accept this cockamamie peace plan because he has to stay an aggressive stance because he's got an election 2 weeks before ours. So he'll never get elected if he doesn't stay in this aggressive stance. And the other thing is, so this peace plan is absolutely absurd. I mean, Trump's son-in-law and two real estate men. I think they sent him to Ukraine, believe it or not. But anyway, just take this thing in its entirety. He is jeopardizing not only the people on the plane, he's jeopardizing the American public. What if he was shot down? What if Iran was successfully shot down that plane? We would be in World War III. So this is the intelligence. You can't tell me that they can't see the big picture of this. If I'm working for the Secret Service, whoever I'm working for, and I get a credible threat that the president will be blown out of the sky, he's going to walk home. He's not going to be blown out of the sky because you're jeopardizing the whole American public.
Yeah, and I got a text that was kind of taking me to task. It's like, what else was the Secret Service supposed to do to ensure his safety? And that accused me of Monday morning quarterbacking. You know what? Just as Paul said, you make an announcement. Oh, we want to change out one part with a different part. You're gonna have to find your own way home. And then just get the White House aides off the plane, sneak him on a military aircraft. Then you could still do it. The Air Force One doesn't have to be full of people for that to happen. You could have made everybody safe.
The historical significance of a president being blown out of the sky by an enemy. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you tell me what the ramifications are.
Well, you know, it's really interesting, Jim, because I saw an interview with our good friend, retired Major General Randy Manor on CNN, and he said, I don't believe for a minute that they credibly believed that that Air Force One was going to be blown out of the sky. He said, I don't believe it.
I agree with him wholeheartedly because he's an intelligent guy that's in the Army. He knows you've got to go through. I mean, you have to go through every nook and cranny of every strategy you have. That's all you can do. And he's absolutely right because this story is so preposterous because what if they blew him? If they did actually get it done, we would be at World War III now on the phone. We'd be talking about troops being called up and put in jeopardy and God knows what. Oh my God! But I agree with Randy. I agree with Randy, man. But as far as this peace plan, Joan, this is ridiculous. I mean, they're putting this nonsense out there like it's germane to anybody's intelligence.
And about Iran, did you hear what Trump said today? We are. How did he put it? We are semi-negotiating with them. We're semi-negotiating with them. Is that like being a little bit pregnant? We're semi-negotiating with them.
Oh, yeah, he's still negotiating with just everybody on Earth. But anyway, we're stuck with plans. But plans for 2.5 years.
I know.
The mischief he's up to all he can guess. Anyway, Joan, thank you very much.
Jim,
Joan,
thank you so much for the call. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Hey, let's go to the west suburbs. PR's on the line. Thanks for the call today. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. Thanks for taking my call. You mentioned the illustrious Vivek Ramaswamy earlier, and every time I hear that name, my skin crawls because this isn't why I called, but I'll real quick. He is another one, as with Rubio, Ted Cruz, and the illustrious liar-in-chief. They're all poster boys for anchor babies. Let me say that one more time for all the people that monitor your fine station, and you know who I'm talking about because they monitor your station. They are all technically, and they have been, anchor babies. So when he passes this legislation, does that mean they get shipped off? That would be great.
It seems like that would have to happen, right? If we're getting rid of all the, we're getting rid of all the anchor babies' citizenship, then you're right. You're absolutely right. Marco Rubio, sorry, Marco, you're gone. We're going to have to ship you back to Cuba or somewhere.
Oh, darn. We would be so much better. But I am calling to you, on a lighter note. Over the weekend, my youngest was off duty, and we were able to go to brunch. And going down Route 30 in the New Lenox, Moquina area, there were hundreds of people lined up on Route 30, a main drag there, and they all had signs, and I wish I had pictures. They were regarding release the Epstein files, all the cover-up that's happening. They also had a lot of signs regarding the war that we are in that is needlessly costing us billions per week. It was very heartening to see there were hundreds of people. Plus, that is as far as I know, it's a very red area where there were a lot of Trump signs up all over and flags. And curiously enough, you don't see as many now. I think
you're absolutely right.
Those are the ones that are getting hit in the pocketbook. They're paying more for gas, and it's not just gas; it's oil changes. Oil changes are pretty much. You go in to get your car oil change; it's almost going to be double now. And some dealers are running low on certain specific weights of oil. So you can't blame that on, Biden or Obama or Hunter Biden or whatever. It's going to come to a point where they need to look in the mirror and not blame other people.
Yeah. Thank you for the call. I really appreciate it. Let's go out to the state of Oregon where Victor is on the line. Hello, Victor.
Hello, Joan, the most beautiful, ravishing person on the radio.
Yes, I have a face for radio.
Well, that's okay. I just wanted to say that, it is all Donald Trump's fault with this luxury jet. He knew that it wasn't defense ready. He must have known. They must have told him.
Well, can you imagine, though? He's got this Qatari jet that they're getting up to speed. He likes it because it's so much more luxurious than Air Force One. You know darn well. They said to him, "Sir, it's not completely ready. Is it ready enough? Can it fly? I'm going in it." Yeah, come on.
Exactly. That's exactly how it came down. And he didn't care about anybody else. And when they did this fast maneuver, putting Donald Trump in a box, you don't have to worry about him having a place to go to the bathroom, because he's wearing his diapers. But you have to feel sorry for the Secret Service who was protecting him. And what they should have done is take that box, wrapped it up in birthday wrapping paper, and put a big ribbon on it and send it to Vladimir Putin. That's what they should have done.
Well, that's an interesting thought, Victor. Somebody else just texted in. The way the Secret Service got Trump into the box is by telling him there was a pit of gold in the box. Yeah. Isn't that, Victor, thank you so much for calling in. It is always a pleasure to talk with you. Let's go to our good friend Ron, who's on the line in Chicago. Hey, Ron, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. Remember a long time ago, there was a ventriloquist, Senior Wences, and he had a little box on a table with a little door, and he would knock on the box and say, "All right," and the box would say, "It's all right."
Oh, God. Yep. Somebody else texted in, if you're a science-minded, Schrodinger's Trump. He's in the box. Is he alive? Is he dead? I don't know. He's in the box. We don't know. It's a scientific quandary.
Mystery. And a little bit about the weather. There have been more tornadoes in Illinois this year than in the states of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas combined.
Yeah, the weather is going to be more fierce. The weather is going to be more. We're going to get bad weather a lot more than we had it before. I mean, look at the hurricane season. Oh my God! And in the Pacific part of the world, a hurricane is considered a typhoon. And man, I don't know if you've seen some of the pictures from China. Shanghai is just drenched. We have the same weather. It is just worse, and it's coming. The worst stuff is coming more often.
Yeah, I have relatives in the Philippines. They have typhoons all the time now. Yeah. And also, when Trump announced his executive order reducing the vaccines from 18 to 11, why didn't he have RFK Jr. speak about that?
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And does RFK Jr. have some kind of, malady or something? He was really shaking or something. He really didn't look good.
Huh. I didn't notice, but I did see, I can't remember if they were talking about vaccines or something else, but there was a shot of the Oval Office, and Stephen Miller was standing behind the president, and he was talking. And if you look at Trump, he can barely stay awake. His eyes are drifting down, and he opens them up, and they're drifting down, and his head is tilting, and then he straightens it up. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, not getting better. All right. Okay. Thank you much.
Thank you. Someone else texted in something interesting. The idea of Donald Trump being put into a food container so that he could be taken off Air Force One secretly, flown in a military plane to London, and then secretly put back on Air Force One so nobody ever knows that he wasn't there. Somebody said, Joan, this story sounds like it's concocted by Bibi. The Iranians are too clever to actually try this. When the planes switch, the new Air Force One was switched out for the older Air Force One because of security. It was reported then that some of the quote-unquote threats of assassination against Trump were being reported by the Israeli military, that Israeli intelligence was one of the sources of this, Donald Trump, they're going to fight him. So, who knows? The Secret Service clearly felt that this wasn't just run-of-the-mill talk. Or maybe they felt maybe it was run-of-the-mill talk, but with the president's life, you can't take a chance, But he was in the box. He was in the food box being moved around. Oh, my goodness. When you think it can't get any weirder. We're going to take a break. We're going to come right back after the news with much more.
Don't turn that dial.
A dangerous mistake to make.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now on WCPT 820.
On July 3rd, we did a little experiment here at WCPT because it was officially the holiday, and we thought we could be a little more free, shall we say? A little more loosey-goosey. I decided to invite Brian Endless and Joel Ostro, political science professors who do the World Discord podcast, to both join me for the entire day to talk about the news, to take calls, to read texts. And it turned out really, really well. We got some great calls, a lot of listener interaction, because, usually I give you the first hour of the show. But today, because of what we're doing again, the phone lines are going to stay open. And I am going to continue to check the text line as well. Because once again, political science professor Brian Endless from Loyola and political science professor Joel Ostro from Benedictine University are here. And we are going to talk about the news. We are going to talk about things that are going on, things that we think might go on. And because they are both kind of suck-ups, they're in the studio live right now. They could have been by Zoom, but no, we have to go to the studio.
Lucky we did, because Joe lost power in his house.
Let's note who isn't here.
Paul, I think that they're just in the studio because they like to be with you. Doesn't that frighten you, Paul?
That's mostly what people do, though. They show up to see me.
And I didn't know we were an experiment, Joan, so hopefully we
Didn't I tell you that was an experiment? I'm sorry. I should have shared that with you. Because I was like, I told them I would work the quote-unquote legal holiday. And then I was like, oh, my God, it's a holiday. Probably nobody's going to be around.
And so you invited nobody, Brian and Joel.
And then I thought, well, my thinking was I can do anything I want to, and I can have fun, and I thought you two would be fun, so there. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
All right.
So much for gloom and doom.
Yeah, Dr. Doom was nowhere to be found. I think we have to start with Donald Trump in a box. Somebody said it was Schrodinger's Trump.
Yeah.
And which I just love. The story is kind of weird and funny. But the part that I can't get past is that they didn't come up with a creative way to keep everybody safe. From all the reporting, none of the White House aides on Air Force One knew that Donald Trump had been removed from the plane. Certainly none of the journalists on that plane knew. So it was going to be okay to blow them out of the sky? Is that where we were? I just find that appalling.
I'm going to go in two directions with this, Joan. The first one is I think that the mainstream media is playing this up because it makes good news for one news cycle, and it's distracting us from other stuff we should be talking about. Now let's talk about it for a minute, since we're going to be distracted here. To me, yeah, you hit it exactly. These are people who were made into decoys or sacrificial lambs, and that's something the Secret Service signs on to do. That's their job, and somebody fills in and goes with the president in the fake car, or whatever the case is, but you put 50, 100, 200 people on a plane, and that's just horrific. Par for the course, but horrific.
I agree with Brian that this is a distraction from the one thing Brian and I agree on, that anything that's not about the corruption, greed, and kleptocracy of this regime is a distraction.
I'll go with the war, too. You don't put the Iran war in as much as I do, maybe.
Well, I think that's part of the thievery of this regime.
Making money off it. Yep.
But, I think that if indeed the Secret Service was worried, and by the way, I don't know if you heard this, but I saw Randy Manner, retired Major General Randy Manner on CNN, and he said that he did not believe it was a credible threat. Now, he didn't go into a lot of detail on that, but maybe that's why they felt that they weren't putting those people in danger. But there are so many different ways it could have been handled. We need to change the oil in Air Force One. So all you reporters, you're not going to be getting seats. You got to find your own way home. And then keep Air Force One on the tarmac while you secretly put him in a military jet. And once he's safely in London, say, he couldn't wait. We had to fly him to London. But Air Force One is fixed now, so all of the White House aides can get back on. it doesn't seem like it took a lot of brain power to figure this out in a way that didn't put hundreds of lives at risk.
But it depends on what you mean by credible threat, or what threat is the one that you're asking is credible. Every account I've read about this Qatari plane that is now designated as Air Force One lacks 90% of the key safety protocols that the real Air Force Ones have. Saw a really in-depth analysis of what would have to be done to a standard 747 to make it as safe as a real Air Force One. The most significant is the in-air refueling. The Qatari 747 does not have the capacity to in-air refuel, which means if there is a serious crisis where the president and whoever's with him needs to be in the air because landing would be unsafe, the plane needs to be able to refuel. This plane's not outfitted for that. And then also, it basically is impossible to retrofit a 747 in that time frame to be able to survive an electromagnetic pulse that would come from a nuclear explosion. So this plane is not. So, I mean.
Doesn't have the anti-missile tech on
Right,
it.
doesn't have the. But I thought maybe they were able to install some of the jamming and other stuff, but it's not overall as secure as the real Air Force Ones are. So, threat. I mean, that plane is less safe than the other two Air Force One planes that are in existence, no matter what. And then if you put any additional sort of even semi-credible threat out there, Secret Service isn't going to want him on that plane.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with the general on this one, that there was no real threat, but I'm going to go in a totally different direction. I cannot imagine in my wildest dreams why the Iranians would want to kill Donald Trump.
No kidding.
He is so useful to them. He is winning.
Really?
Winning
Really? Because, they keep saying, they put up signs, you're going to kill Donald Trump, kill Donald
100%.
Trump.
They do that all the time.
Yeah.
He is a useful buffoon to them. He does so many things. He lost the war from the very
The regime
beginning.
is stronger, and now they're profiting off of collecting fees off the Strait of Hormuz, which they never had before.
And pretty much
they love him.
Pretty much every word out of his mouth on Iran has helped the Iranian regime. And yes, they're killing people at the top. There's no question
But
about
the regime
that.
doesn't really care about that.
Right. The regime's bigger than that. But yeah, the Iranian leadership, the Republican Guard.
So you don't think it's just a matter of pride that, he insulted them and thought he could get away with this, therefore we must kill him?
I think they're smarter than that.
Yeah, they're using that for propaganda purposes.
Right.
It plays into their hands.
Yeah, and that's when we talk about, the death to America and, America's going to burn in hell. That's just all propaganda for the internal audience. And they're going to keep saying that no matter what. And they'll say they're going to go after Trump and do tit for tat for going after their leader, the Ayatollah. But I don't know why any rational person, and I do think the leadership is very rational there. I don't know why they're evil but rational, by the way. Let's be safe here. Yeah. But I don't know why anyone who is self-interested would want to get rid of Donald Trump now. And that goes for people like Putin and China, too. He is insanely useful to the dictators and to the enemies of the United States at the moment.
Because he's so easy to manipulate?
Yeah, and he is random in ways that don't help U.S. security. So even if you can't manipulate him, you can count on the fact that every other time, or 5 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, he's going to do the wrong thing. He's going to do something that at best helps himself and his family and a few other rich people, and it hurts the United States.
Right, like Iran or other countries, like really any other country, they don't care if Trump and his cronies are fleecing the American people of their wealth. They care about their security vis-a-vis the United States of America. And if our security is weaker, they're stronger, right?
Right. And they care about their economy.
Yeah,
and they just care in general about their status in their region. So again, he's boosting Iran's status. He has made Iran a player with the Gulf states. The Gulf states were hardly talking to Iran. They were much more on the Saudi side, not all of them, but most of them. And now we've got Oman and Iran talking about what they're going to do with the Strait of Hormuz and leaving us out, by the way, of those talks.
Yep.
Well, it's funny. Now that you point that out and I think about it, Donald Trump has done more to disrupt NATO than Putin ever has.
Oh, yeah.
100%. He did that in his first term, too. That was a stated goal. To be perfectly fair, he actually stated that he wanted to do that. He started it in his first term. Biden did an incredible job of reversing it, regardless of what you think about Biden. He did a very good job of putting NATO back together. And now Trump has taken it apart again to the point that some of our NATO allies are they are increasing their militaries and military budgets. That may or may not have some good to it, but they're also talking about potentially looking at nuclear weapons in the future because they don't think we're going to protect them from Russia.
Yeah, they don't trust. The consequence of this is they don't trust the American people, right, to elect somebody sane. Because twice we've elected somebody who's
once could be an accident, but twice no. We're gonna carry that stain with us,
especially given the circumstances of the second time and what we already knew.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. We knew who he was, and I'm just so amazed at people who are either, to be kind, trusting or naive, who apparently didn't realize that he lied 30,000 times in his first term. And, he was clearly saying what people wanted to hear. Oh, in vitro fertilization, that's a big issue. It's going to be free. It's going to be free for everybody when I'm president. Grocery prices are going to come down. I'm going to end, the Iran or the Ukraine conflict on day one. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Do we just have that short a memory? Were people's wishes getting in the way of their intellect?
You know what, Joan? I'm actually going to disagree with you a little bit there because I don't care about those people.
Right.
We're not going to change those people. That's only 40 to 42% of the population, though. It's going down now. He's actually screwing up enough that he's down to 35% popularity. But what I care about are the people who didn't vote or the people who thought they could vote for someone other than the candidate that could win. And I'm a person who doesn't care if you like Kamala Harris or not. She was the alternative to another 4 years of Trump. So I'll have students and friends who say, well, it's not my fault. I didn't vote for him. I voted for the other person. And my response to that is, okay, did you go out and convince everyone you know to vote for that person? Did you knock on doors? Did you make phone calls? Did you do everything you can do to actually keep a democracy in place and to encourage other people 100%. To vote with you?
100%.
Yeah. Guys, we need to take a break. I'm speaking with political science professor Brian Endless and political science professor Joel Ostro. We are going to, we've already got some texts of questions people want you to deal with. The phone lines are also open. Paul Shavari would love to talk to you. He is sitting in the studio with these two, so he'll have to talk to you very quietly, but please call 773-763-9278. We'll be back after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Political science professors Brian Endless from Loyola and Joel Ostro from Benedictine University are here with me. We are going to talk about all the news of the world from now until 5 o'clock. We are going to take your calls. We are going to read your texts. 773-763-9278. We have been talking about what is going on in the Middle East. And I know, Joel, that we sort of interrupted before you could finish your thoughts. So please, you have the floor.
Brian was talking about what I like to call the performative resistance opposition voters from the last election that who refused to vote for Harris and enabled Trump to seize power. I think that this warning is even more important. What Brian was saying about the need to vote for democracy in November. is even more important because of this burgeoning division on the left in the Democratic Party between the more progressives and the more moderate. And I think this goes for both sides. Whoever the candidate of the Democratic Party is in the fall, it is incumbent upon those who are not MAGA to vote for that person, whether it's House, Senate, governor, and even state legislatures up and down. The sort of virtue signaling voting for a minor candidate who's not going to win is destructive. Like if you do that, you're voting against democracy.
Yeah,
we
unless
have a
there's
two-party
ranked choice
system.
voting.
Right.
We don't have
Which we
that,
don't have, yeah.
Which we don't have here. Right, right. But I say it's even more important for the fall because even today, and I'm sorry I didn't have time. I can't remember where I saw it, but Trump responded to a question about the possibility of seizing ballot boxes, seizing votes in November in swing districts. He responded to that with, well, we'll have to see.
Mm-hmm.
He said multiple times we need to seize the ballot boxes in blue states, and we have to make sure that it is only Republicans who count the votes. And this is not making anything up. These are things he has said on multiple occasions.
And in swing districts across the country, MAGA controls the election commissions, both the local ones and state level. So it's a very real prospect.
Yeah.
Congressman Jim Himes, I've been playing this over and over again. He was on one of the weekend shows talking about the midterm elections and how Donald Trump is going to try to interfere. And he said he thinks the most likely and also the most frightening scenario is that it looks like the Democrats are going to win big, particularly John Ossoff, who seems to be a particular burr under Donald Trump's saddle. And Donald Trump goes on television and says, well, I've got word that there are people in Venezuela who are admitting that they invaded our voting machines and that they disrupted the votes, and this election it can't be counted on. So we're going to negate it, or we're going to redo it, or we're just going to, take away all of the voting materials and study them for a while. Jim Himes said that he thinks that, especially when Donald Trump made that ridiculous speech where he was trying to talk about, all the people who are messing with our elections. He said that he thinks that Donald Trump wanted to do that basically as laying the groundwork for this thing he's going to say after the midterms, like, we thought it might happen and it's happening. Now we have, this is not a free and fair election. We have to just discount everything that's happened.
Well, look who just got confirmed as Attorney General.
Yep.
Oh, my God, I know.
Yeah. But also, this is a piece of Project 2025. It's pretty much, you almost did chapter and verse what you just said there, 100%. Joan. It is make the people doubt the election process. That is a part of the plan. The more doubt you can put into it on both sides, the better off you are from that perspective. And the idea there is to, again, give more power to the people who are really in charge, to the oligarchs who are behind the scenes. And it's just an enormous power grab there, and things being up in the air are good for them. They think they might get something out of it. And if they don't get something out of it this fall, they're setting themselves up again for the next presidential election.
And they've been wildly successful in this piece of that Project 2025, Brian. I think it was 82% of Americans support the idea of a voter ID. That includes, is it something like 74% of Democrats?
Yep.
So this disinformation about our elections, about the lies that our elections are not secure, have penetrated across the entirety of the electorate.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing that it's going to need to be fought here, and again, you made the point very well, Joan, the question of Trump's going to come out and say this. Trump is absolutely going to come out and say multiple things.
He already is saying it.
Yeah, he's setting us up. We know he's going to do it. The question is, how good is the Democrats and opponents' messaging on this? Because they are putting legal provisions in place. That's something I've been very pleased with between Pritzker and then governors and attorney generals generals in the West Coast and several other states, they've got their legal challenges ready to go. They're expecting to have to put in lawsuits to make sure ballot boxes don't get seized and things. But the people at the top need to have their messaging in line and need to have a consistent pushback message that makes him look as foolish as possible, and it makes Trump look as radical as possible. I'm not sure what that message is, but that's got to be a piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We are very close to a break, so I don't want to shift gears here. But one of the first texts to come in, hey, Joan and guests, please tell us the path to a November victory for the probable Democratic nominee socialist lightweight for Wisconsin governor. Francesca Hong, according to polling, seems to be the front runner to get the Democratic nomination to be the Democratic nominee for governor. David Crowley has Tony Evers' support and is believed by a lot of people to be the more moderate Democrat. The primary election is today. We will know what's going to happen tomorrow. But for those of you who read the Wall Street Journal, the hysteria over Francesca Hong has been almost comic. And, you know, I was talking to a political strategist who said, you know, Abdul El-Sayed, yes, he's a democratic socialist, but if you listen to his message, it's a very much a kitchen table issue. And they didn't feel necessarily that they were getting that from Francesca Hong. We have to take a break, but we will get to your text right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Political science professor Brian Endless, political science professor Joel Ostro, and I are going to be talking about the news of the day until 5 o'clock today. The phone lines are open. The text lines are open. 773-763-9278. I did read one of the first texts to come in today, and it was a thinly veiled reference to Francesca Hong, who is a Democratic socialist who is on the ballot in Wisconsin to try to snag the Democratic nomination to run for governor. And she has gotten a lot of heat. One thing I said earlier today, you know, Graham Plattner got a lot of heat for things that he had said and done earlier in his life. And he handled it, I thought, beautifully. First of all, if you heard any of his speeches, I mean, he was right there with kitchen table issues. But he also said, I never said I was perfect. I told you I once had a drinking problem, that I was, you know, that I was in the Marines and had PTSD. Don't judge me by who I was. Judge me by who I am now. And I think that really helped him. I think Abdul El-Sayed has spoken of, has, you know, all the people who, you know, want to make fun of his funny name, et cetera, and so forth. I think he's addressed those critics very, very well. In Wisconsin, Francesca Hong has been accused of not being quite so, what's the word I want? Not
diplomatic.
Glib. Yeah, exactly. So what do you guys think about all this?
Well, first of all, Graham Plattner, turns out that Graham Plattner now is too close to the Graham Plattner of before, and too bad the people of Maine didn't recognize that when a lot of the rest of us did. In terms of the question you posed before the break, my answer is the same as Brian's, and mine was when we were talking before. If she's the nominee, then the moderate Democrats in Wisconsin have to do what they have not done the last several election cycles. They need to go out and support the Democrat. And if the nominee is the moderate, those on the far left need to do what too many on the left of the Democratic Party across the country have not done. They need to go out and support the Democratic nominee. That's all there is to it. But I would add to that and also be prepared to resist attempts to steal the election. We can't sit around as if defeated. And that, you know, I sound like a broken record to you and your regular listeners now, Joan, but we're too complacent. We're too accepting of the unacceptable, and like a true resistance needs to be ready to be mounted when the guys with the guns come to try and take the ballot boxes and burn the votes.
Speaking of that, one of the things that I've been talking about with some of the experts I've had on is, okay, let's go. Worst case scenario. Trump makes this declaration and starts, I don't know, sending the FBI out to do what they did in Georgia. How do you combat that? Do you call out the National Guard and try to shoot the FBI if they try to get into the building? Do you lock the building and everybody just lives there for a few months? How seriously, how do you counter that if Donald Trump and Kash Patel, who of course is about as reliable as Todd Blanche, sends the FBI out to polling places to where the votes are being counted and delivered?
Well, one quick comment on what Joe was saying first, and then I'll answer this one, Joan, so we don't lose it. I'd add two things to what he's saying. First is, I think the Michigan party, from what I've seen, Democratic Party, has done a good job of rounding up the horses and
100%.
getting everything around, I'll say it, and supporting him. Wisconsin certainly has to do that. The bigger contest right now is, what are the mainstream, quote-unquote, centrist Democrats who run the Democratic Party nationally and in Washington going to do? If they don't get out, it's going to be enormously harder for her to win in Wisconsin. If they do get out, they can put a lot of money behind her. And then to some extent, too, most people who are in a radical position, one way or the other, run toward the middle somewhat. And I would love to see her get Abdul Sayed's message and focus more just on words like affordability and education and healthcare, without talking about universal healthcare, and get those things out there. I don't know if you two have seen Al Sayed's first ads that he's put out.
Yeah,
but
brilliant.
Him and his grandparents. And his
No, tell me about them. I haven't seen them.
His grandparents are describing this radical leftist Muslim is what you're supposed to assume coming in. And then they say, and then the camera pans up, it's like, and that's our grandson. This is why all these things are great. And he comes in at the end. It's like, this is why you don't let your grandparents do your ads.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. On that worst case scenario, though, tactics are going to change over time. Tactics are going to change depending on what they do. The governors are starting to get ready for this. We need to see if anyone does call the National Guard out. A big question is going to be if local authorities and the governors push the police to get involved. And if it's the police getting involved, I don't think it's going to be anybody necessarily standing with guns pointed at anybody else. If you want to get the National Guard or police involved, you'd basically do something similar to what you suggested. You lock the doors, you bring a Brinks truck up to the ballot box, you bring stuff out with guards around it so nobody can seize it, you bring it to an official place, you get everything done, and then you open it up. But the minute you see those FBI agents come in, you throw out the court challenge. And that's the thing they're absolutely ready for. So I think it's really a matter of hours that they need to hold on, because it is incredibly likely that early court challenges, especially in blue states and in urban areas, are going to be decided very quickly. It's like, okay, the FBI has no right to do this. We're going to put a stay on allowing them to do it. But that's all still conjecture, and there's a lot of ways it could go.
What's a court case going to do, Brian, if they take the ballot boxes and they shred or burn the ballots?
You got to get them before they take the ballot boxes. So
how are you going to do that in the states where there's Republican governors and Republicans controlling the election commissions?
Incredibly hard.
Well, see, I think the states with Republican governors are just going to turn over anything that Donald Trump asks of them. I don't think there's going to be a Brad Raffensperger who stands up and says,
don't see one.
Unlikely.
And you talk about the police. Chicago, we know in the state of Illinois now on what side the state police are, on what side the Cook County sheriffs are, on what side Chicago Police Department are. And if that's true here, what is it in Michigan? They did not support the people. They supported the goons. And they will continue to side with the goons and turn their guns towards us.
Yeah. And honestly, talking about the people, I could also see protests that start surrounding election buildings.
That's what we need is 100,000 people there defending the ballots.
Ordinary people, and ordinary people standing in the way and, chaining themselves to the trees or to the doors or whatever it may take. One of the questions that I think we're going to have is, as we get 3 or 4 weeks out from the election, Trump's likely to ramp up his rhetoric. How do ordinary people respond to that? Do the protests start early?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Do we get to a place where people are ready to come out and everybody knows, okay, election day, we're going to have to be out and surround polling places at a legal distance to start, whatever the legal distance
Forget no
might
kings.
be.
What if we started a general strike on the Monday, right? And then stay on the streets at the polling places, like organize that nationwide and have those who support our democracy protecting those polling places, meaning creating a path for people to get in to vote and protecting those ballot boxes after.
You're a bigger fan of a general strike
I sure
than
am.
I would love to see it. I just don't think it's practical in the United States.
Got to start organizing it now for November.
Well, I agree, Brian. One of the hosts here on WCPT is Rick Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick Smith, as you guys probably know, comes from a real blue-collar background. He was a truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still, in most of his friends, his whole circle, they're all some union guys, blue-collar guys who he talks to all the time. And so I've asked him for the last year about the viability of a general strike. And he has told me the same thing every time. The people who would really need to be the backbone of this aren't feeling enough pain yet.
Yep.
Right.
They're not feeling enough pain yet. I think the pain is beginning to come, but last time I talked to him, he said he doesn't think they're there. I mean, when they finally realize that they've got no health insurance and all these other things that are happening, but he doesn't think it'll happen in time for the midterms.
Yeah. I don't disagree with either of you. I'm saying we need it. I'm not seeing it happening.
Yep. Yeah, and the other side is the people who, and the other end, so I absolutely agree with that. Part of being in a union is you tend to get a good job and you tend to get good pay, so you're not feeling it. The other side is the people who have to work in order to feed their kids and can't leave work and can't take the time off of work, and that's a growing percentage of people too. So it's really a rock and a hard place there.
Along these lines, Joel, you were talking about how when we finally get a nominee, no matter whether they're the progressive or the middle of the road or the conservative, we have to get behind that person. I agree 100%. As near as I can tell, unless something got by me, Chuck Schumer never endorsed Zoran Mamdani,
he's gotta go.
when he was the nominee.
Mm-hmm.
That would seem to belie the whole vote blue no matter who. We're a big tent. Oh, we're a big tent if you're a moderate or a conservative, but if you're a progressive, I don't know.
Hakeem Jeffries, Ken Martin, Ken or Kevin, whatever his name, Ken Martin, Nancy Pelosi, all those guys need to shut up and leave the scene.
Yeah, they're very much old party, but they are also the corporatist party, and the people with the money want them to stick around. So that's, again, a piece of the catch-22. On the Schumer side, there's a whole lot of rumors about AOC and what she might do in the future. I really hope she doesn't run for president because she would have no chance of winning enough states to actually do it. Even, some of the states that are purple, they're not likely to listen to some of the messages she's gotten. She's been too easy to be demonized already. She's very much kind of like Hillary. She's already...
Kind of like nobody would ever elect a black man president?
Well, yes, thank you.
But I think
Obama jumped up.
I think maybe what I hope, Brian, is that she realizes that. I mean, we live in a country that is extremely misogynistic. Yeah. I don't want to see a woman on the ballot. I hope and I think she's smart enough to know that, but I also think that when she talks about the presidency, she drives Republicans crazy.
Oh, 100%.
And I think she's enjoying that very much.
I think she could beat Schumer, and I think she would win in New York if she beat Schumer. And that's a big thing that's out there. That's a possibility that he's got to be scared about. Now, he's going to get every bit of money in the universe coming into him if she actually runs against him for Senate. But that's got some possibility.
Well, I think that she gave an interview a while back, and somebody was like, "Oh, you're going to run for president?" And she goes, "Here's what like Republicans don't understand about me." It's and I'm paraphrasing her here because she said it far more eloquently. But what she said basically was, there's not a certain job that I'm trying to get. She said, there is change I am trying to bring about. And I don't need basically to keep climbing the ladder to bigger and bigger jobs to accomplish what I want to accomplish. I'm doing a pretty good job trying to get things done right here, right now. And she said, I am motivated by what I want to do, not who I want to be.
And Brian, like, I'm really surprised because tell me what the name of one member of the Democratic Party leadership or well-known Democrat who has been more consistent and laser-focused on affordability, on healthcare, on wages, on education, on alleviating debt, on combating the grotesque inequality in this country. Whose politics more aligned with your economic politics, Brian Endless, than AOC?
I have always liked AOC,
Oh.
and I've never made any ifs, ands, or buts about it. But AOC to me is a lot like Bernie in that she is using the leftist catchphrases, the catchphrases from the left. So she talks about universal health care, people getting into socialized medicine. She talks about the different things the government should do. Those are going to be problems in purple states. This is versus Al-Sayed, who I've really liked what I've seen of his campaign so far. He doesn't talk about any of the code words. He goes straight to affordability. We need affordable housing. We need affordable food. We need affordable water. We need better jobs. We need better education. I think that any person who's coming at it from that progressive DSA, whatever you might call it, perspective, if you want to bring in people in the middle and the right, you've got to avoid the demonized words. And they're words that people on the right, that think tanks have literally set us up to trigger us. Commies, the one that's going to be thrown out against everybody. You know, everybody and their sister is going to be a commie if anyone disagrees with them. But those words have power even if they have no meaning. So Bernie is an example. Anytime he talks about Medicare for all, he's great idea. I think Medicare for all would be fantastic. And if you describe it that way, you lose people. Versus describing to me, a healthcare system. What I want is a healthcare system where insurance companies cannot challenge our health benefits. We sign on for insurance, and then we go to our doctor, and our doctor and patient decide what's going to happen. There are no denials. There's nothing that gets in the way of those things. The insurance companies make the payment because that's what they're supposed to do. That's how I want to describe it, or whoever's insuring it makes the payment. And that is a description that I think can really work toward middle America and even deep red America when you're talking about some of those issues. And if you use things like socialized health care, Medicare for all, universal health care, those have already been made into bad words.
Guys, we need to take a break. I'm speaking with political science professor Joel Ostro, political science professor Brian Endless. We are going to continue to read your texts, take your calls, and talk about the news of the day right after this.
Back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Political science professor Joel Ostro, political science professor Brian Endless, and I are taking your calls, reading your two of the three of us are crazy. You get to figure out who's the sane one.
If you two want to be crazy today, go for it.
And you know, this text kind of echoes Brian's talk about code words and being careful. Even though I will tell you, the vast amount of texts I get from people, they're like, I'm sick of corporate Democrats. And if I'm not going to vote for anybody unless I believe that they're going to get in there and fight, I don't want people turning the other cheek. If somebody's broken the law, I want to make sure the people I elect go after them and hold their feet to the fire. Except for the fact that just got this text, and this is also a sentiment I'm seeing more and more often. Anyone who votes for Francesca Hong must be bat poop crazy. So even though we are a very liberal, a very progressive station, we're listened to by a bunch of Democrats are sick of it. They're not going to take it anymore. There is still a belief that there is too far. You can be too far to the left. Does that surprise you guys?
Not at all.
No, it's people fight, and this is something the left does more than the right. For decades, I've heard that people on the left eat themselves, and it's just a hobby that people on the left fight with each other to see who can be more pure about things. I'm actually on Facebook now in a leftist solidarity group that I just joined. I go for some of the super radical on the left and right. Just
You're
to
on
see
another
what they're
list
saying.
now, dude.
Well, I've been on that list for a long time. I have a checkered past. But this group, every other message is somebody saying that the previous person has to be canceled because they disagree with how radical I am. And, it's always got to be, they don't know what a progressive is. They don't know what a communist is on that page. Being a communist is good. They don't know what a socialist is. The DSA is too conservative. And these are all people who need to get their acts together. My personal focus and what I encourage people to do is we need to be laser focused on winning.
Yeah.
Whoever you are, because we've talked about existential elections for too many election cycles now, but do you want to empower Trump for the next 2 years to effectively do whatever he wants to, because he will only get worse over the next 2 years, or do you want to elect people who can take back at least the House, if not the Senate, and put up nonstop roadblocks to him that will prevent him from doing the worst of the worst and take so much time he won't have time to do it. The other thing I want to encourage people to do is, if you're on the left, don't have too much hope for this next group of legislators coming in.
No.
They're not going to do anything for 2 years. Their job is going to be to stop Trump from doing negatives, to resist. And people need to realize that. Otherwise, that's going to backfire.
When you say they won't do anything, you mean they won't pass any bills?
They won't be able to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we all know that unless Democrats take the Senate,
Well,
you're
they'd still
absolutely
need
right.
a veto-proof majority. That's not happening.
No.
But for people who don't know Brian's and my positions well enough, what Brian's saying there is important to hear coming from Brian, because al-Sayed is a major reason that Kamala Harris lost Michigan. Mm-hmm. He was a leader of the voice for those telling people not to vote for her.
Yeah.
And people follow. And so now he's the nominee. And we need to support him. Even, that's all I wanted to say.
No, exactly.
Guys, let's get, before we have to break for news, let's get a caller in. Let's go to the phone lines. Jim is on the line from Chicago. Hey, Jim, you're on with me and Brian and Joel.
Hi, Joan. Hi, gentlemen. A crystal ball question. Who's going to pick up the mantle of Project 2025 after the demise of Trump? And the other thing is, when we got 6 Supreme Court judges encouraging this project, tooth and nail, every day, where do we go? Who do you? First of all, I mean, who's going to pick up the mantle? That's the $64,000 question. But the 6 Supreme Court judges seem to be full steam ahead with this project. And that's a real conundrum, because the whole justice system is infected by that. Anyway, I'll take it off the phone, guys. Thank you very much.
You want to go first?
I'll go first. The justice system, you're just absolutely right. There's no question about it. That's got to be fixed in 2028 or
Thank you,
beyond.
Mitch McConnell.
It has been absolutely terrorized, and it was absolutely a part of Project 2025. By the way, that document focuses much more on the lower levels of the courts than the Supreme Court, and on getting as many lifetime appointments in federal courts as possible. And they've been doing way too many of those, too good a job on those too. In terms of who's going to pick up the mantle, not only do I not know, I can make some guesses out there. I'm not sure it's that important, because Project 2025 is not about Trump.
Right.
Project 2025 is about the people behind the Heritage Foundation. And Heritage is having some problems now, but the funders behind the Heritage Foundation are the people who have pushed Project 2025 out there. They paid for the messaging.
And they brought Trump to power.
Yeah, exactly. And Trump is a useful dupe to them coming into power. And he's been incredibly useful, because the things they want are less taxes, less regulations that cost them money, and more money in their pockets. And then that makes more political power.
And there are plenty of dupes in MAGA that they can choose from to elevate to the top.
Yeah, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, multiple other people that would have no problem because they know what side their bread is buttered on, and it's the people who are going to get them elected, and those are the people who are actually behind Project 2025.
Though I did read one, I think it was an opinion piece where somebody said that Donald Trump will never forgive J.D. Vance for being right when they had that private meeting, and J.D. Vance, by all reports, was the only person who was adamant about not dropping missiles on Iran. And this was it was funny, but not funny. And they said, if he had been wrong, it would have been okay because Trump would have needled him about it, but he was right. And this person said Donald Trump will never, ever forgive J.D. Vance for being right about Iran. Sounds like him, doesn't it?
What was he right about?
Because when they
Trump
had
and his friends have made hundreds of billions of dollars already off of this war.
But this has been a war he didn't think would turn out this way, and he's clearly having trouble finding a way, whether or not he's made any money, he's having trouble finding a way to get out of this situation where he looks like any kind of a winner. And by all accounts, even though Rubio was, I don't really know if the information we've gotten is right. Apparently, J.D. Vance was like, we can't do this, we shouldn't do this. Tulsi Gabbard felt the same way, which is probably why they had this meeting when she was on the beach in Hawaii.
Yeah, well, apparently General Dan Crane felt the same way and just wasn't saying it, too.
Yeah.
And he didn't talk about it. I think that theory has one big problem, which is it assumes that Trump has a long-term memory and cares about those things long-term. And at first, I don't know physically if it's there, but second, what do we know about him? He is a narcissist, and he is massively transactional. He goes from one thing to the next, and he does 180s when he comes back to that thing. So I think that he will blame Vance when he feels like blaming Vance, and that it is convenient to him and to whatever his current narcissistic urge is to not blame Vance. He will say what a great guy JD is.
And in the end, the future, it's going to be the people with the money, who do they want? And Trump's not going to be the one who's anointing a successor, as it were.
And Vance is the one person that we know is in Peter Thiel's pocket. Others, I don't think we know a connection that's that deep.
But he's really good at being a puppet.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He
Peter
is.
Thiel's puppet, without question. Guys, we have to take a break for news. I will be back with these two political science professors for another hour right after the news.
Don't turn that dial.
A dangerous mistake to make.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now on WCPT 820.
Joining me is political science professor Joel Ostro, political science professor Brian Endless. Together they do what's called the World Discord podcast. Joel, as you know, if you listen to this station, has an area of expertise when it comes to Russia, which is why a lot of times we talk about what is going on with the Ukrainian war. And Joel, I don't know if he shared this with you, Brian, but Joel sent an interesting article from one of the Kyiv news outlets about Ukraine is not reporting Russian missile interceptions because I guess they don't want to talk about the trouble they're having with their air defenses. Joel, I didn't have a chance to read this to the complete end. Tell me what this article says.
So apparently a couple days ago, without any fanfare, no announcement, explanation, when the Ukrainian government reported on the situation from the past overnight, usually, of Russian-launched drone and missile attacks. For the first time a couple days ago, they conveniently just didn't mention anything about how many missiles had been fired. They still reported how many drones were fired and how many were shot down, but no longer providing data on the number of missiles Russia has launched. The only reason I can come up with for that, and others have speculated, is because they are now completely out of Patriots. So they can't shoot any of them down. So they can't report percentages shot down anymore. So they're not going to report. I don't know if that's accurate, but I can't think of many other reasons why they would have changed the reporting.
3 or 4 days ago when I started hearing that every missile is getting through, that they have nothing they can do now, and they can still go after drones, and they still have the ability to shoot down drones, but that shooting down missiles is impossible at the moment. They don't have the munitions.
They are developing their own anti-ballistic missile system. I don't know if those are going to be rockets that somehow can be launched from the Patriot systems, or if they're entirely independent. But those aren't even going to be tested until next month, and so couldn't even, in the best case scenario, be used until October or so.
Donald Trump originally didn't want to give them anything, and then apparently seemed to agree to give them the plans so they could build their own Patriot-like defense systems. And then, as is his wont, shortly thereafter, Donald Trump was like, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to share that or not.
Hate to say I told you so, but I'm pretty sure I told you so.
Well, as long as you don't rub it in, as long as you're as gracious as you usually are. What is Zelensky going to have to do to get any help out of Trump, or is that ship just simply sailed? Well, and Germany has these same plans that they got from the United States. Why can't Germany, because everybody in Europe doesn't like us anymore, why can't Germany just say, hey, you want these plans? We've got them. Here's a copy.
Germany's had the license for 2 years, and they have still produced 0 Patriot missiles. They're very complicated systems, and we're not talking about the systems. We're just talking about the interceptors, the rockets. They require multiple components from multiple different subcontractors. Japan has started rolling some out of the factories, but it's not many. And really, the significance of the news for Ukraine. It was going to be at least 12 months, and that's if Ukraine beats all-time estimates on Patriots like they have on other systems, and there's no guarantee they'd be able to.
Yeah.
So it was going to be over a year before they got them. Part of the problem is there really are not anti-ballistic missile systems and certainly not Patriot interceptors available even to give to Ukraine at this point, largely because of this Iran war. Thousands of them have been used to protect American bases and our allies across the Middle East.
And have you seen the reports that behind the scenes in the Oval Office, Trump has been screaming at Hegseth about the fact that we are running out of munitions, and Hegseth, true to MAGA form, is throwing his deputy under the bus, saying, well, you know what? Wasn't me. I got bad info from the deputy.
I think they're upset that the information has gotten out about those shortages rather than the actual shortages, but who knows?
It's hard to say. The shortages, though, are insanely real, and they're affecting everything. And we know last week Trump was talking about strikes, and the reports are that he reconsidered because we didn't have enough missiles.
Enough cruise missiles,
right. If we attack now, we don't have enough missiles to attack, and we'd be making a small supply of anti-missiles even smaller, especially for our allies.
The good thing is Russia and China haven't noted this shortage.
Not at all.
Everything's fine.
I think we should talk drones a little bit too here, though. On the Ukraine side, Joel, one of the interesting reports today was that the Ukrainians apparently hit some targets way to the east of Moscow.
Oh, yeah.
They went deep into Russia and hit targets. And that's really seems to be Zelensky and the military's plan. There is the best defense is a good offense, or really their only defense at the moment is a good offense. And they're trying to make it painful and expensive for Putin by attacking inside of Russia, and especially attacking oil and
wild berries.
Yep.
Yeah, about 40% of those wild berries warehouses. And they're getting those drones far to the east. This is about a month ago I read this. I assume it's still going on. The reason they're able to get them so far is they're using balloons to carry the drones on the prevailing winds, atmospheric currents. Those balloons can't be seen or traced by Russian radar systems. And then when they get within range, then they drop the drones fly to their target, and boom.
Creative.
They're nothing if not creative.
By the way, I looked up the number 2 under Hegseth because I couldn't remember his whole name. Steven Feinberg. He's a billionaire financier who promised senators that, he knows how to turn around failing businesses and he would make the Pentagon a leaner operation. I guess that's why he didn't replace any of the munitions, because now we have a leaner quantity of munitions.
That man is highly qualified for that job. I don't think we should be questioning him here.
I know. He made a bunch of money. That must mean he's smart, right? All righty. Let me go see what's on the text line, see if there's any more compliments for us as opposed to... a lot of people texted in. I didn't go back to this. A lot of people texted in about affordability and health care. And some are questioning, Brian, when you seem to say that if you're running for office and you're saying about Medicare for all, that people got the sense that you said that was like too radical and that would turn people off. And people want to know why you think that.
Not the concept, right, Brian?
Right. No, if you describe the concept of Medicare for all, it's like 95% of Americans are in favor of it. The words,
the label.
Yeah, the label, the words Medicare for all have been demonized. And this has been part of the rights messaging. I have said this for a couple decades now, really since.
Well, then how do we put forth this idea without using those words?
I think you have to describe it, and you have to get better at messaging than they are. To me, the description has to focus on what are you going to do for me. So what I want to do for you is, I don't just want to make your health care affordable and make sure your premiums don't go up. I want to make sure that when you get a health care insurance policy, it has to cover everything. You can't be denied for everything. Your kid can't be denied for anything. You're going to get anything that your doctor prescribes. We're going to make sure that drug prices get to the level of drug prices in other countries, because we're getting ripped off here. We're going to make sure that you get access to the specialists that you need, and we're going to rein in the worst excesses of the insurance companies, because everybody hates the insurance companies, except the insurance companies, of course. And those are the types of things that you can focus on the specifics and do it pretty quickly, because you have to do it in quick messaging, versus throwing out the catchphrase, because the catchphrase is a loser. It is something that everybody who's going to buy into Medicare for all has effectively already bought into Medicare for all, and they're going to like the description. You can bring in more people from all over the country if you really describe it in ways that tell people how it's going to change their lives.
One thing that I think isn't something we talk about yet, but I have a feeling we'll be talking about it more in the future, is this idea. I think there should be a law prohibiting hedge funds from buying nursing homes, medical practices, hospitals, anything that affects people's care or their health. Because I was just talking to somebody who there was in Washington, D.C., there was this group where a specialist group where anybody who had a condition could go to this group and find an expert. A hedge fund bought it and eliminated it.
It's going to sound
fired
flippant,
everybody,
Joan.
and then said, well, we're going to, on a case-by-case basis, we're going to bring some of these people back, but for now, everybody's fired.
You could have ended your statement at the word funds. I want a law to prohibit hedge funds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's very little good going on there, and no good for anybody below the 0.5% out there. So on that one, healthcare should be nonprofit, and it was nonprofit for much of our history. Healthcare should be a human right. Barack Obama dropped that into 2 speeches. He was the first U.S. major politician to ever talk about making healthcare.
And then he chickened out.
And then he chickened out on it, exactly.
How did he chicken out?
He didn't go for the real health care for all. He kowtowed to the
Nancy
insurance
Pelosi
companies.
try
But there
to
was
design
a single
policy through the legislature.
In the ACA, there was a single payer option. Joe Lieberman told the White House he wasn't going to vote for the ACA if that was in there. One senator killed single-payer option part of the ACA.
Yep, there was still way too much profit for insurance companies.
Yeah.
There was no fighting against the drug companies either. Trump, interestingly enough, has done more for keeping drug prices down, and that they've taken the top 10 drugs on the Medicare list and they're negotiating. We should be negotiating, have the government negotiate for us for all drug prices, for all healthcare prices. This is what every other country does. The government doesn't have to provide the insurance. That's one way. There's a German model where insurance companies provide the insurance, but insurance companies must cover everything for costs that are set with the government and the doctors. And then the insurance companies can go out and do what they want to, but they may not charge you more than a set amount every year, and they may not deny any coverage at all. So we don't even need.
You mentioned Trump lowering the prices of some drugs. I know that 8 drugs were lowered under Biden.
Correct.
Are you? Is that what you're talking about? Did Trump have another tranche of drugs?
Trump added 10 more. And it might have been 12 more. I think we're up to 20 now.
Not sure.
Guys, we need to take another break. I realize this seems like a lot of breaks, but that's because our discussions are so fascinating that time is just slipping right by. We will be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
We are talking to Brian Endless, political science professor, Joel Ostro, political science professor. Hey, Paul, are the phone lines still open?
They are, yes.
Because I think somebody must have tried to call in while we were doing the contest. Somebody is texting me that they want to call in and have not been able to get through. So 773-763-9278. If you have never called in before and you didn't have a pen to write that down, think of it this way: 773-763-WCPT. You can text me on that line. You can call us on that line to talk with either of our political science professors or me or all three of us at once. Okay, what do you guys what have you been doing on World Discord, and what is your next show going to be about?
Uh-oh. What was our last one?
Let's see. The last one was on Iran. We had an Iranian refugee, great guy, Ali Tarokh, who is working with the Syrian Refugee Center, worked with Iranians for a while. He had to flee when the first Ayatollah came in. He was jailed for a while. And that episode just dropped this week. So YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
And the one before that, we had Dr. Katie Suleta, who's a global public health expert. Was kind of a little all over the place on public health, but started talking about the Ebola outbreak and
which
kind
I
of
believe is the worst Ebola outbreak in history at this point.
And kind of how that's connected both to the severity of it, both to climate change and how that's accelerating the rise of new diseases or old diseases in places that hadn't encountered them before, but then also changes in the United States and in our engagement in foreign affairs generally, particularly on health policy. USAID closed. We've withdrawn from the World Health Organization, and how that has also exacerbated problems of health.
Yeah. Then we're looking at shows coming up on Venezuela and Cuba and potentially
maybe Colombia.
Yeah, Colombia, and then potentially.
Yeah, you better do that Venezuela show before the midterms because, it's figuring out what's going on with Venezuela might be a little bit trickier after that if Donald Trump decides to blame them for interfering in our elections.
Yeah. We're trying to get Maduro as a guest, but we'll see.
Well,
That's a joke, by the way.
He
everybody.
has a brother who's still in Venezuela. Maybe you can get the brother.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about SCOTUS, the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
The main headline. The main headline today.
Joan, excuse me for 1 second. We were just saying that we haven't been very funny lately. That one was really good.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, the comic relief is welcome anytime, all the time, especially when you're talking about the Supreme Court. The Guardian lead article today: Samuel Alito gained up to $2.9 million from oil and gas assets since joining Supreme Court, analysis shows. Critics argue U.S. High Court Justice should recuse himself from upcoming fossil fuel firms' climate accountability case. What do you think the odds are Samuel Alito is going to recuse himself?
Well, he's been on the court how long?
Well, that's the other thing about Alito.
And if he's
Some
got
people are
an
saying
investment
that if he
account
really
that was
loves...
an Exxon, like its value has increased a lot in 20 years. So, and he, I'm assuming, was pretty wealthy before.
Yeah,
that's kind of a low number. I thought he would have made more with a B instead of an M.
The chance he's going to recuse himself is zero.
Yeah, pretty much.
And yeah, it's just absolutely insane between Alito and Thomas. They shouldn't be recused. They shouldn't be taken off the court. They should be in jail.
They should be in jail.
It's just open, blatant corruption. And it's all getting reported on. And effectively, they're shrugging their shoulders and saying, so what? You can't do anything to me.
I agree with that. Do you believe, as some people are speculating, that if it really looks, as we get closer to the midterm, if it really looks like Democrats might make inroads in the Senate, that Alito will fall on his sword and resign so that Donald Trump can replace him with another far-right person, but perhaps one who's more like 40 years old?
Possibly, but I certainly hope the Democrats pull a McConnell, and don't allow anything to get to the floor if that happens. It's too close to the election. We should memorize those words. It's too close to the election to bring in any new Supreme Court justice.
I personally think that even if it would be for the good of the cause, I think Alito has too much ego to step aside for the good of the party or the good of the country or anything other than himself.
Yeah.
Don't know. He can do whatever he wants. It's a life appointment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And interesting, whenever I talk to, this didn't used to happen, but when I talk to any legal people who are Supreme Court experts, to a person, they now support the idea of expanding the court. And that was a minority position not all that long ago. But, the idea that this court is there for life, and they are, no matter what kind of wonderful laws Democrats pass, if they get to the Supreme Court, they can, you know what? Nah, we don't think so. Just like when Joe Biden did an executive order to get rid of student debt. No, sorry, you can't do that. But how many executive orders of Donald Trump have they said no to? Even birthright citizenship was a 6-3 vote, with 3 justices saying, yeah, if he wants to write an executive order to redo the Constitution, that's just fine.
Yep, it's absolutely insane how politicized they are. And, 15, 20 years ago, at least they pretended. This court doesn't even pretend anymore that it's not politicized. I think we've got to expand it. I think the other thing that's starting to pick up a little bit of steam is the idea of term limits, 15 or 20-year term limits.
Yeah, I favor expansion is not going to solve the underlying problem. What we need to do is, there's so many changes that we need to make to the Constitution in the wake of changes to our country, and how clearly it's the Constitution we have is not standing up anymore to defend democracy in the way we need it here. The courts are one major change that is needed. Our election system is another.
Yeah, and if you do term limits, you can't have them all come up at once either. It's more complicated.
Well, one of the suggestions that I've been reading about is there should be a system in place where each president gets to appoint one justice, and that's how the rotation goes, rather than this whole, one president appointing 3 people and other presidents appointing no one.
Yeah, but what happens if someone cacks?
Leave it
well,
open,
that's a really good question.
You leave it open till the next election still. Yeah.
Or just Paul could be on call to be like the full-time interim justice.
I would accept that.
We're talking about people who are in the news. One of those people lately has been Bill Cassidy.
Ugh.
I know.
I've been saying that a lot
today.
today.
It's 3 a.m. and I'm crying, and I know people are going to be mad at me for being the deciding vote for Todd Blanche, but I'm going to do it anyway because
Cornyn and Tillis with him, all 3 of them.
Yeah,
there's no backbone.
I don't know if this is for speaking engagements afterwards or what the hell is happening
Well,
here.
Cornyn, Cassidy, and Tom Tillis, if they're rich, at least 2 of the 3 are pretty old. Do they really need to become a lobbyist? Do they really need to be put on the board of directors of some sort of Republican business because they need that extra $1 million
Maybe
bucks
they fear
a
for
year?
their safety.
Possibly. If I was them, I'd be sticking it in Trump's face every time I could.
Oh, after what he did to Bill Cassidy?
Yeah.
I mean, at least Thomas Massey, who got screwed over, is standing up and saying, you know, I loved his concession speech. Sort of, I didn't win. Donald Trump wants me out, but Donald Trump should remember I have 7 more months in Congress.
Yep. Yeah.
And where was that from Cornyn? Where was that from Cassidy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no spine.
Cowards, all of them. And, there's been a big backlash.
And that woman in Maine, too. Let's not
Susan
leave
Collins
her out.
and Lisa Murkowski voted against Blanche. And I don't know if they thought that would improve their standing. But everything I saw on social media was, you're cowards. You've always been cowards. The only time you do the right thing is when you know your vote doesn't make a difference.
Yep. I think there's actually a chance Susan Collins is going to get pushed out this time. We don't know too much about the new candidate, but she's getting a lot of negative press, and she's always won by small margins of the people in the middle. I think she's done enough to lose those people.
Yeah, but have the Democrats also done enough to lose?
Yes. That's a good question.
That's the problem.
Well, I don't know.
In Maine.
One expert told me that Troy, what's his last name? Jackson?
Jackson,
Troy?
I think, yeah.
Troy Jackson is the person that Graham Plattner pretended to be, the real blue-collar guy who's running for the office. Since Plattner apparently came from a wealthy family, but was, picturing himself as a real man of the people. Troy Jackson apparently really, truly is. But I agree with you. I would imagine that the people of Maine are tired of how she's concerned. Susan Collins is concerned, and sometimes she's disappointed. Oh my God, how could you keep that woman in that seat?
They're just going to bring up all Brett Kavanaugh's rulings if they're smart.
Yeah. That's the big albatross around her neck. Well, he promised me. He promised me. Don't you guys understand that he promised her?
She voted for RFK Jr. too. Didn't she support him?
Yep.
Bill Cassidy again. Bill Cassidy's a doctor. He knew better.
Yeah,
and what's the deal with John Fetterman, for God's sake?
I have no idea what Fetterman's doing. He now has been offered spots on the Republican side.
Yeah.
He said he's not going to take those, but he doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason to what's happening. Joel is pointing at his head and doing a little swirl.
I'm saying it was his stroke.
Yeah, but I don't know. He's acting in illogical, irrational ways. I'm not sure that anybody's really tracking it. I don't think we see enough of him here to know. We don't see enough on the national news. I don't know if there's somebody local who has a better picture of what's happening there.
I think it was New York Magazine that did that big takeout on Fetterman, where they were talking to a lot of his former staffers. And the guy who used to be his chief of staff I loved the guy. I believed in the guy. But since he had his stroke, he hasn't been the same. He went on to describe all of these really weird behaviors. And some of his staff, I don't know if it was the same chief of staff guy, but when all this was swirling around about, is Fetterman going to become a Republican, people who had been on Fetterman's staff said, no, there's no way he will join the Republican Party. He's obsessed with social media. He's obsessed with the people who post about him in social media, and he loves the fact that as a Democrat who votes with the Republicans, he gets all kinds of attention. If he actually went to the Republican Party, he would just be another Republican. But with the way he's positioned himself, he gets so much attention. And basically what they were saying is that's what he is all about these days, which is sad.
Plausible.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So now that we've solved the people who are on the Supreme Court and in the Congress What other problems of the world should we solve right now?
Well, I want to talk about Truth Social, whether it's now or whether it's after the break. You tell us, Joan. But
right now, we can start now. We can take a break in 10 minutes.
So I don't know if everybody's heard that Truth Social announced a couple weeks ago that they will be selling access to Truth Social, and if you put in a significant amount of money, you will get Donald Trump's tweets 15 or 20 minutes before they actually go out to the public. And I'm not sure if they've stuck with that or if they've upped the amount of time. And originally I was with everybody else in the universe, and it's like, who the hell would go out and buy Donald Trump's tweets, access to Donald Trump's tweets? Joel's pointing someplace in the room right now. Who would buy it? And then the other shoe dropped this morning, which is there has been a gigantic amount of buying, and it is hedge funds.
Yep.
Hedge funds are purchasing it because when Donald Trump tweets about companies,
they can make a lot of money in that 20 minutes.
Exactly. He moves the market. They get insider information. They get the trades in, and then everybody else gets the information after. So this is
Donald Trump as much as said. Didn't Donald Trump as much as say that that's why you should spend, I believe it was initially at least $100,000 to get this access? It's just going to be seconds. It'll be a few seconds before I actually post it. But, that's enough time to get in a computer trade, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, it's absolutely insane. The blatant, open corruption.
Yeah, they're not trying to hide any of it anymore.
No. They don't need to. Donald Trump knows he is not going to be held legally responsible for anything. I actually hope he's wrong. I hope he's doing some things that he can get nailed on in New York or in other states, because he's not going to be immune in the states. But his kids can absolutely get nailed on some of these things afterwards on the state level. And I think we can only hope that those things go through after the fact. But he really doesn't seem to care at all.
Do you think in a folder somewhere he has written up a bunch of preemptive pardons for, say, his kids, for Todd Blanche? Because what if he dies and he hasn't put those pardons in place? I'm wondering if he's being that proactive, or whether he is, because supposedly before he left office in his first term, apparently you can do preemptive pardons, and supposedly he had those pardons written up for all of his children, so that if once he was out of office, the federal government came after them for some reason, they could whip out these pardons. And that's when I first learned that you can basically do secret pardons that you hold in your back pocket in case you need them. I wonder if he's done that already, because
shocked if he hadn't.
Yeah, for his kids, I'd be shocked if he hadn't.
Yeah.
For others, I would bet that if he's done them, he is holding them effectively as ransom for good behavior. And he's not telling people, it's like, stick with me and you'll get your pardon. And if you don't stick with me, you know what's going to happen to you.
Because I don't think, and maybe you guys don't agree with me, I don't think he is healthy enough to survive this term. I really do believe that we will wake up any morning and we will discover that in the middle of the night he had a brain bleed he didn't come back from.
Yeah. Every morning that goes by, I think you and I first talked about this several months ago, Joan, I'm at the exact same place. I think that the odds are he's going to die in office of natural causes. I do not wish that on him. I just think it's likely that it's going to happen. But every day that goes by is a day closer to that not happening. So it'll be interesting to see how long he holds out. And I doubt that it's going to be slow unless, he gets something that keeps him in a coma in the hospital or something. Pulls Mitch McConnell, basically.
Yeah. Well, I think if anything happens during the day, obviously, some people have predicted he likes to be on camera so much that he may actually die on camera. I don't know about that. But, in the night, there was that article, or not, it was an article. It was in Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Snow's book, Regime Change, about his habits at night. And it sounds like at night, Melania's not there. Nobody's checking on him. So if something happened overnight.
That's why all those tweets or whatever the hell they're called come out at 2 a.m.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, did you read that section of his nighttime behaviors in the book? I've
read the excerpt, yeah.
Yeah. Because what they were saying is He eats junk food all night long.
Yeah, he's not drinking kale smoothies.
Right. And the White House staff has learned that every morning they have to go through the trash cans because he uses the historical sterling silverware to eat his junk food. And then when he throws it out, he throws the silverware in the garbage as well as the paper.
Well, that was disposable when he was growing up. Why shouldn't it be now?
God, unbelievable. Okay, we will take the final break and be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I'm joined by political science professors Brian Endless and Joel Ostro. I saw a little news item, I can't remember, in the recent past about DOJ officials showing up with no official ID badges or anything that would indicate who they were, but people figured it out. They went to polling places in one of the states that was having a primary, and they went in, they were just looking at things, walking around, and they did this in multiple locations. And I thought, well, that's weird. I wonder if that's, information gathering so that they can hatch some plot. But I just read in The Guardian that apparently they are doing it today in Minnesota, that people from the Justice Department are showing up at polling places, just kind of looking around, walking around. And usually it's 2 or 3 at a time. They don't identify themselves. They're in plain clothes. But the first time I thought, well, that's weird. I don't know what that means. But they're doing it again. I have to believe that they are gathering information for something that when it finally comes out, I will not like. Any idea what this could be about?
This is in Minnesota today?
Minnesota today.
Because I feel like I heard about this a couple weeks ago, and I don't remember what
so
state.
Did I.
Was it
that
Michigan?
Was a different. Today, it's officials monitoring polling sites in Minnesota's 2 largest counties. Say Trump's Justice Department. Federal staff will have to stay 100 feet outside polling sites. They're in Hennepin and Ramsey counties after county officials refused them access to get inside. The first time, if you could recall when we read about this a few weeks ago, Joel, they just kind of wandered inside. Yeah. Nobody knew, until they were there, kind of nobody knew it was coming or who they were or what they wanted. But this time around, they were not allowed inside, so they stayed outside. What is the plan?
The
what
prior
is this?
one was Michigan, was it not? Do you remember
I can't remember, but I remember reading about it and just kind of tucking away. Oh, that's kind of weird. I wonder what that's about. Probably nothing good. But now that it's happened a second time, something's really going on here, and I can't figure out what. You guys have any ideas?
My educated guess, this is from my long conspiracy theory education that I've gone through. I think it sounds like test balloons. And they are taking people and testing and probing in different areas to see what they might be able to do in November, who responds quickly, who doesn't respond quickly. Think about
so
the places
they're not
they can go
testing
into.
the voting process. They're testing the poll workers?
Yeah.
Poll workers,
their ability to
polling
manipulate,
places. Well, not just manipulate, but ability to manipulate, ability to potentially snatch and grab something. Are they being shut out at the door, as some of them are? Are they being kicked out? Are they just, polling workers just looking around and saying, well, who are these guys? What do we do now? Things like that. And that'd be a guess, but it's just a guess.
Wow. I guess that does make sense. As long as we're talking about elections, I also can't figure out why Donald Trump has gotten behind Lindsey Graham's sister.
Yeah, we were talking about that before.
When he first appointed her to fill in his seat, I'm sure you saw all the jokes on social media about, my brother's a brain surgeon. If he dies, I expect the hospital to call me right away so I can step in. I mean, the idea was really absurd that somehow with absolutely no credentials whatsoever, you can just step into, I guess being a senator isn't as hard as pretty much any other profession.
This is not limited to one party. No. Claire McCaskill went in to serve for her late husband in Missouri, and then ran and won. I believe she won a full term.
She did, yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things that we don't think about it that often, but at all levels of government, it is a perfectly natural thing in our society to say, okay, we're going to reward the spouse and let them fill the seat. And sometimes they leave after the amount of time, and sometimes they end up running again, but qualifications aren't particularly important, or, sitting in the seat and listening to all the stories when your spouse gets home seems to be the primary qualification there. That it's not unique, though.
Well, apparently she did tell Donald Trump that if it came up while she was there, she would vote for the SAVE Act, the act that Donald Trump is obsessed with, that basically would make it really difficult, if not impossible, for a lot of adult women to vote.
That's the litmus test.
Yep.
Absolutely. There's no bigger litmus test than that right now.
Oh, so you think that was it?
She had to say that, whether that was the thing that sold him or not. That's a requirement for the job. If you want the job.
For any job, really.
Right.
Do you support this? Like,
if you want to be supported by Trump. Absolutely. Yeah, if you want to be supported by Trump, and not only that, but Blanche has to tell all of his subordinates to support it and make sure that they support it and to keep the loyalty test going.
Speaking of this and Blanche, it makes me even more frightened for the midterms, because Todd Blanche is not going to step up and say, oh, that was illegal. Yeah, they can't do that. Nope. Can't do that. I mean, this guy has only one path to existence now. He turned his back on his law firm. He moved his family to Florida so that he could be Trump's lawyer. If this thing with Trump doesn't work out, Todd Blanche has nothing. You think his law firm is going to take him back? You think any other law firm is going to touch him?
Well, there's movement to have him disbarred, I believe.
Yeah, I would hope a lot of the lawyers in the administration get disbarred for the acts that they should not have committed as professionals. There's been a ton of that going on in the attorney generals and in other offices. So, yeah, he could have a lot of penalties coming out of it.
How far down the chain do you think the preemptive pardons go? Is it just going to be the kids? Is it going to be his cabinet members? Is it going to be Mr. Blanche? Because Mr. Blanche is going to be in a world of hurt if he doesn't have Donald Trump shilling for him.
Yeah, he might just end up doing something similar to what Joe Biden did, but even more dramatic than that. And pretty much anybody in the cabinet and just below it who's on his side on the day that he's giving pardons, you get a pardon, you get a pardon, you get a pardon, and run them all down the line.
And more expensive than that, all those profiting, right? Those who are going to put money into this true social sell-off. People like that.
It'll be interesting to see if he does pardon some of the CEOs and some of the big investment people and finance people that are out there. I wouldn't guess that he's going to do that, because they're pretty much, immune to most lawsuits anyway. It's really hard to go after them.
But it wouldn't surprise me if he did.
It's possible, yeah.
Speaking of Joe Biden, I can't remember which book this was an excerpt in, but when Donald Trump was elected, Joe Biden invited him to come back to the White House and apparently greeted him with welcome home. And they sat, and Donald Trump, like butter wouldn't have melted in his mouth. He was just so sweet to Joe Biden, and he was so complimentary. And, oh, your party really, it was a raw deal they gave you. And he was really, really nice. And apparently after that, he reached out to Joe Biden and said, oh, by the way, I just want to make sure you're doing okay. And if you or your family ever need anything, I want you to call me. And because of those two conversations, Joe Biden almost didn't write up pardons for his family and for his most high-profile people, because he believed, again, I guess this takes me back to the beginning. He believed Trump, and his aides apparently were like, this guy's just snowing you. This guy's just snowing you. He's telling you what you want to hear. He doesn't mean it. And the one reason they said in this book that Joe Biden issued those pardons was when Donald Trump started making announcements about who was going to be in his White House, who was going to be in his cabinet. And Biden realized that those were people who were going to be vicious to Hunter, among others. And that's when he finally relented and wrote up the pardons. And on the one hand, I'm glad he did, even though he still gets some grief for it. But I thought to myself, this is a guy who's been in politics his whole life.
You should know better.
And Donald Trump sweet talks him twice. And he apparently was saying to his staff, no, he was so nice and he's ready to help my family. And they were like, dude, no.
Yep. What do we know about Donald Trump? He is a
lies.
narcissist. He is completely transactional. I don't think he lies. I just think he doesn't know what the truth is and changes it whenever he wants to. That's the transactional
But my question is, Joe Biden, how could he be so naive?
I don't know. It's really hard to say. It's one of those, Joe is getting old and there's a little bit of that there, but I don't want to blame it on that. That's not necessarily it. Was he in a down moment? I don't think we can really make a guess at what was in his head then, but it was
He
silly.
is naturally a trusting sort and always has been. His first inclination is to trust people, to trust the institutions, to trust the system. I think he's always been like that.
Yeah, but I agree with Joan. I just don't know why anybody would trust Donald Trump in anything.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially somebody who's basically spent his entire adult life in politics. That really puzzled me. And of course, also, I'm sure you guys have heard the portion of the interview that Hunter Biden did with the BBC.
Yep.
Where he just described how metastasized the prostate cancer was and how much pain Joe Biden was in. It's just, that's what took Lynn Bramer. Was a metastasized prostate cancer. And God, it was so hard to see him be in so much pain. And like Biden, though, he kept a positive attitude for as long as he possibly could. When he had that one break in his treatment, he went back on the radio for a couple of months.
Yep.
It's cancer is a terrible way to die. But from what I saw with Lynn Bramer, the pain of metastasized prostate cancer can be just breathtaking.
Yeah, it's horrific. They all are, but yeah.
So if and or when Joe Biden dies, will Donald Trump show up at the funeral?
He won't
will
be
he
allowed.
Give
He won't be invited.
Yeah.
Well, will Joe Biden's body be allowed to lie in state?
I don't know that Trump could block that one. That would be
Mike Johnson could.
Possibly. I don't think Johnson would, though. That would be one of those steps too far for something that doesn't benefit you, no matter who you are. So I would not bet on that. Is it impossible? No, it's certainly possible, but that's not one I would take a bet on.
Well, I can't imagine that Jill Biden would, if she has any say over who shows up and who doesn't.
Yeah.
I can't imagine he would make the guest list.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, anything else you have about 30 seconds? Anything else you want to touch on in 30 seconds?
I think we got a lot of stuff out today,
Okay.
Joan. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's
Thank
always
you,
a joy to be
guys.
on with you.
It was fun. And thank you to all the people who texted in and Jim who called. It was delightful. Obviously, that is going to do it for the three of us. Brian has got to go home. Joel's got to go home. I don't know. Then again, maybe they're going to sit around and wait for Patty and see if they can do another show. That would, you're already there, guys. Why not? Though Patty has a co-host today, Matt McNeil from the Matt McNeil Show. So I don't know. There might not be enough chairs for you.
That should be a fun listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's also going to talk to Harvard professor John E. McDonough, who wrote America's Wrong Turn, U.S. Healthcare in the Neoliberal Era. Remember, Richard Chu kicks us off at 6 a.m. He's always got a great show. He's going to talk to Mike Quigley, Congressman Mike Quigley, who has announced that he is running for Chicago mayor. That should be a good talk. I will be here back at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Among others, I'm going to be talking to Joel Walsh, who some of you want me to ask some very tough questions, and I have written those down. We're also going to talk to Aaron Kleinman. He's a senior political reporter for Heartland Signal, and he is the data guy. There have been a lot of primaries today. We'll go over all the results tomorrow. Until then, have a great evening and good night.